Ango is a form that we use. It's traditional, goes back in ancient Japan and the Soto lineage to sit for a long period of time. In our situation, we've modified it a little bit to be the whole month of February. This is our third year of doing the whole month of February, 28 days or 29 days, where we do nothing but sit for 8 hours a day for that full time, 4 hours in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, 2 in the evening, and do very little, if any, sutra chanting. We just concentrate on Shikan Zazen. I invite everyone to come and do this together. It's important to do this to train your mind, and you may need the support of Sangha. Sangha may need the support of your presence. So please do that.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining for tonight's Dharma talk, which is titled Seeking for the Truth. Sokuzan asked that I give the talk tonight, and when asking him what might be good to talk about, there's a traditional text from Sengsong called the Sinsen Ming, or Trust in the Heart Mind, Verses on the Heart Mind, any number of translations. There's a really good database online if you just search Sinsen Ming in Google or wherever. There's a free compilation site, like the first thing that pops up there, where there's like 80 some odd, a lot of translations on that. It's a pretty short. You can find it in a standalone book. They're usually pretty small, like a pocketbook. I really like it. I tend to like Richard B. Clarke's version, and I was just looking at the version from Red Pine and the Hojo with Sokuzan today, and they look similar as far as the actual printed material. But the line that is in the text reads, "Do not seek for the truth, only cease to cherish opinions." Do not seek for the truth, only cease to cherish opinions. The Sinsenming is considered one of the first, if not the first, written things about what would be called Zen now, as that was showing up through the teachings over the years. So do not seek for the truth, only cease to cherish opinions. And there were a few things that tied into for me, and in particular with SokukoJi, living here at the monastery, and the way that Sokuzan goes about teaching certain things, in particular book study. And I've talked any number of times on book study, I feel. That do not seek for the truth could be another way of looking at Sokuzan's teaching of you don't need to understand. And maybe there's a little bit of some nuance or something that the Sensenming does add, which would be when we seek for something, we can't really do that without first projecting that thing and then going out and looking for it. It's just the very nature of going after something. There's nothing wrong with that. Something like if I want to go to the bathroom, my first, I guess, I don't know, ultimately speaking, how it is all the time or for everybody, but it looks like I project an image of the bathroom and then I go and find that bathroom, which works for relative things. But when the teaching is said to be ultimate, it's an ultimate teaching. It couldn't work like that. I guess just as a structure, you couldn't you couldn't conjure that and then find it, because you would only be finding what you thought you were looking for. Only cease to cherish opinions. And I imagine that it wouldn't, it would work to say observe our opinions. So not necessarily ceasing to cherish our opinions, but seeing how enamored we are with our opinions. And I like how Richard Clark translates that as opinions, because there seems to be a little, the word opinion has a little bit of skepticism in it. It's almost like we know that it's not a fact when we say something's an opinion. So that we're cherishing our opinions is kind of, I just like how it's said like that in the Sin and Ming, because we cherish our opinions. We fixate, we fasten onto them. And there are things like sports teams mentalities, but we do that with um, everything, and up to and including stuff we would fight over or get violent over, even in sports and things like that. That example, we literally do fight each other over these opinions that are culturally validated. So we are, through that teaching, encouraged to look at our opinions and for me, that teaching could be saying that to find the truth or to understand what that is, instead of going after or looking for the truth like we conventionally look for something, to instead direct our attention to our opinions. And maybe we could even expand that into looking at our difficulty or our suffering. Sokuzan's known to include a lot of what he's called via negativa teachings, which would be saying like the negation. So instead of saying something like we're all one, you would say we're not two. And I think that that's exactly what that teaching is saying in the Sense and Ming. Don't go after that thing that we think. If we actually want to see what that is, it might suck at first or for a long time, but to actually see that, we need to look at the difficulty. Because if the truth is the truth of totality, and we're ignoring a lot of stuff, it sort of makes sense that to see that we need to see what we're ignoring or that we're ignoring, or begin to investigate the mind stream in some capacity, however you would want to talk about that. Are there any questions so far? Kanjuma?
Kanjima bowing. What does it mean to seek? Bowing.
Thank you. And before I go into that, the seeking seems to be necessary. So even though it's saying don't seek for the truth, I think we're all seeking for the truth in some way. So could you ask your question again?
Kanjima bowing, interested in what it means to seek, particularly do we seek to see our opinions? Bowing.
I think we do. And the seeking could be that once we find a practice or we have the practice, we seek to get to the cushion. And once we're there, the way that I've been trained and you've been trained, I imagine, to talk about that is whatever shows up on the cushion, that's it. We've made it to the cushion. That's the intention is um, complete in getting there. So what is seeking? Was that basically the question? I think it's perhaps what the tradition is talking about with bodhicitta. There's some kind of drive or want or need to see what this is or investigate what this is, either curiosity or suffering, depending on how that's showing up for somebody. So it seems like for us to be in this room, the seeking's already the case. We're already investigating, we're looking for the truth. Um, some could you help me get closer to what you're asking if I'm a little off there?
Conjure, I'm shifting it now to effort. So when we are here to see the truth, and it's saying don't seek the truth, is it looking at, or is there a critique on the effort? Bowing.
I think I could. I don't know that it says anything either way. I feel like I could make that show up either way. Where there could be effort in ceasing to cherish opinions. I know that if I'm trying to just bite my tongue or hold my seat, that can be difficult. So there appears to be some kind of effort there too. Um, so I don't know that I'm getting something about that. Is there something you could help me get closer to where you're getting effort from that?
Conjure bowing, no, there's such a thing as a right effort. So to seek to know the truth, you're saying we just need to show up on the cushion. Is there, and hold still, watch what moves. Yeah, I'm always curious about how much should I show up? How much effort is the best word for me should show up in that seeking, bowing.
That should, it's kind of like locking me down on like a really particular part of it. And I want to open up a little bit. The should is making me sort of have to say, um, however, like the amount that's showing up, whenever it's showing up, is the right amount. Um, having said that, I can only imagine that's really individual and different for everybody, and that I know for me has shown up so different throughout the days and the years for my practice. And I don't know that this would hold up if I really looked at it, but I wonder if there's something like, especially at the beginning, getting a nice big momentum, big ball of effort into our practice, and then maybe that slacks off later. But um, I think the effort's in returning, and I really appreciate that SokukoJi talks about it that way because I know I tend to just go into something until I get burnt out, and I'm given the space to do that with the form, but the instruction isn't to do that. So um, perhaps I can come back to what you were asking about. I kind of drifted off there.
Conjure,
But you,
conjure bowing. I'm shifting again.
Moving through space.
it's a girl.
That's a
What do we do with these teachings that are having us look at the illusion, or do a deeper dive on the illusion rather than pointing us to the opinionator in this case? Bowing.
Can you just ask that one more time?
How can we look at these, or what can we do to look at these teachings that are basically saying do this with the illusion instead of seeing that it's an illusion.
Hmm.
Bowing.
That's an interesting question. Um, it feels like it brings up an area for me where I've wondered if we're at like a disadvantage because we have so much information. We have the entire tradition of Buddhism at our fingertips. So we have both the provisional teachings and all the teachings that say like none of that's fundamentally the case. And then I wonder if we're ever at a disservice because we have some teachings maybe we're not all ready to have yet or something. Um, being a little silly there. But I think we I don't know if we need to, but it might help us to work with the illusion as if it were real, because there's even if we were to see that some aspect of this wasn't real, there's so much momentum with the relative body mind complex that um, I think the teachings take the shape that they need to, and there's so many of them that they actually give us an entry point in our relative life because we have a little bit of a situation that responds to practice, I guess I would say it that way. So we can work with it as if it were that way, and it seems to respond to it. I'm thinking like deep consciousness, where Sokuzan talks about there might be an entity or something like that that shows up. It doesn't really matter if it's real, but it's demanding to be talked to a certain way, so you respond to it that way. I think that the practices in Buddhism are similar, where we're in a situation, there's a teaching that comes up, and then that might come into the illusion where we can work with that to see that it's not real, to see that it's an illusion. So I don't think it's at the expense of that. It's still, I think it could be both. We're doing these practices, we're engaging in the illusion so that we can see it's an illusion. I don't think we have to like step out our back from it to see it, um, or that it would work that way. So,
If the searching were to die out or fade out, or somehow searching just stop showing up, would it be an outcome? And if so, is that describable?
I would have to speculate.
Go ahead.
I don't think it would be describable.
Isn't that describable?
Yes.
Then why did you say that?
You've got my tongue tied.
What is that? What is it? What is it? What is it? Does anyone answer? Not that one.
The word that's coming up is love.
Not too bad. Not too bad at all. Kind of a feeble word at times, but if you know what it means, it's not feeble at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Shui Wu.
Hui Wu bowing is seeking the truth, spiritual materialism.
I think it can be, but not necessarily. I think that a large part of a genuine path is seeking. So maybe we could go into, or what I might ask myself is, well, what's being talked about there then? Like, don't seek for the truth. So I think maybe it's, um, I don't want to drift off too far from what you're actually asking, so I'll come back to that. Is there more on what you'd want to know about that?
Is finding the truth spiritual materialism?
I would think so.
Sorry, you have something.
You doubt.
Could you read the line for Xinsa and Ming again? I think my question is similar to Sokuzan's. I'm not sure.
The line that I brought up, is do not seek for the truth, only cease to cherish opinions.
You know, so I was going to ask you if you can find the truth. But given what Sokuzan was asking and you answered love. Is that something that you encounter if you're seeking the truth?
I really don't know. And like, I wouldn't stand behind that answer. Like, that was literally just what came up when he asked that. Like, I have nothing else to say around that, or so I don't know if that undoes your question or gets me out of it. Could you ask it again?
That you don't mind was more along the lines of what would you, I think it's very similar to what Sokuzan was asking, like, what would you find? Can you find the truth? Can you recognize the truth without the negative? Can you see it positively?
It's a good question, and it brings me back to that line. And I don't know. And maybe that's what it's saying there, where we can't really know the truth, but when we see the opinions, that's a good like, hey, this is something you should look at. Like, you can't see the truth, but you can definitely see your opinions. And you can also miss those, but like when they come up, like when it's enough for us to comment on them, then we're probably seeing how opinionated we are. And perhaps there's something more to it than that, but I really like at least that part of it where um, it's like if we could really grok that, it would take a lot of pressure off. Like, we could just chill out, and that's another part that I think it's trying to talk about too, where like Bodhidharma says, like, really there's nothing to see, but you have to put some effort in to see that. It's a paradox in a way, but like if we just understood that, we could perhaps just relax and not need to even practice, but we're so conditioned and like in a knot, like in a both speed and space is like a tight knot that's going very fast, and it has been for a long time, it seems. So that's where the practice comes in, like to Kondrama's point, to meet into that illusion, to give us a little bit of a crutch. Actually, I think there is like a crutch quality to practices. They're not necessarily something you could or should just have to do forever, but you might go into them with an intention to do them as if you're going to do them forever. Um, okay.
Kabbalah, if a non-practitioner encounters that line, don't seek for the truth, and they're not seeking for the truth, is that what it's referring to?
Probably not. No, yeah, if I'm understanding, that's a really specific situation. I wouldn't think they're talking about that.
Kabbalah, so do we have to seek the truth to not seek the truth?
I don't think you could say always so, like that teaching, not always so. And just because there's such a thing, it looks like, as a spontaneous realizer, where I think by definition, there's not a seeking before then, it just sort of happens. So that means that it can't be necessary, or that it might show up in such a, I'm thinking of how Sokuzan talks about the 13th century is happening right now. You don't know how many lifetimes someone had as a spontaneous realizer right now. They might have been a monk for 13 lifetimes right up before then and just don't remember that. So all that to say that maybe there is some kind of necessity there to seek first, but it's hard to pin down or to track that.
Kabbalah is seeking relief from suffering, seeking the truth.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah, I like that. And I think the issue is it's like in a way it's not really different than our self-centered striving. It's just maybe more honest about it. It's like, all right, if you really want to feel good, actually look at your situation and see how what you think you're doing to feel good is not serving that purpose. Um, yeah, there's a lot there, but I feel like I'm kind of spinning up already. Is there more around that? That feels like a juicy area.
Kabbalah, what is the doing part of seeking the truth?
I think for us, it's getting to the cushion and participating in whatever degree of the other three jewels and practices here, for example. So there's a lot of relative doing, getting to book study, getting to the cushion, coming to either ask questions at a talk or to give a talk in your case as a fellow monk. So there's a lot of doing in that sense. Is that what you're asking about?
Kabbalah, and also, can we miss seeking the truth? Um,
Can you say more what you mean?
Kabbalah, if we have the intention to practice and seek the truth, is there a way we can miss it? Um,
I can only speak out of some inspiring things I've heard teachers say, and in particular, Sokuzan spoke to this area before, where at least at one point he's gone as far as to say it's inevitable. Like once you have that intention, it might be like lifetimes, but if it's just the intention, it seems like you would see it eventually. Or even some parts of the teaching say that everyone's going to see what this is. So it would have to show up if that's the case. And maybe I'm believing that. Maybe that's where I get a little faith-based here, but I like that. Um, I'll lean on that a little bit.
Kabbalah, and then there's the missing part where if we look at the teaching that it's already the case, the truth is already in front of us. What is that missing? Or what are we missing in that?
I missed the first part. Yeah, can you just ask that again?
Kabbalah, if we look at the teaching that everything is the Buddha, it's right in front of us. What are we missing when that teaching isn't evident?
Sorry, I got a good stretch in my leg. That particular teaching has been really great. I don't know what I mean by great. That's shown up pretty strongly for me since I first heard it, because the first thing I saw, like, is that I'm not actually looking at what's in front of me. Like I'll go and get in front of something, and then like literally my eyes will like dart off, and like I'm literally not looking at what's in front of me. Like I try to look at something and I can't do that. Literally the most basic thing you would think a human can do is direct your eyes and look at something, and I can't actually do that when I investigate that process. Um, so just to say that part of it, it shows for me how I'm not actually looking at what's in front of me. I can start there.
Kabbalah, does that show up as suffering?
I think so. I think that's sort of what I'm looking at there when I describe that is I have like an intention, and it's literally intention with what's actually happening. So it's showing me that I can put my mind on something, so to say, and that I don't have any say so there. Like there's my body's literally just doing what it wants or what it's been conditioned to do for a long time. Um,
Kabbalah, if we want to put our mind on something, is there something wrong with that?
I would say no, but I don't think I'm getting at what you're wanting to know. You could help me with that.
Milk bowing. When your eyes dart away, is that you trying to get away from what is there?
Hmm. I think there's something to that, like in a really basic description, that's sort of what's happening, isn't it? Like you're you're watching how you're wanting something else that you literally just won't see what's in front of you. And it's as basic as that. I think that it's pretty poetic almost, like that little movement there. And I feel like I've heard a lot of people talk about that when they first start practicing and they notice that pretty quickly. That discrepancy, we think we just take for granted we have that much say so, and then I'm not alone in that observation, I don't think. But anything else on that?
Milk bowing, it's bringing up the original line of don't seek for the truth. Is that correct?
Mhm.
Um, what's showing up for me is like don't seek for the truth. It's like you could would you see that as do seek for the truth?
I think it could be said that way. And some teachings actually present maybe not that exact thing, but other parts of the teachings that way. I'm thinking of the Gelugpa in Jeffrey Hopkins' book, Meditation on Emptiness, where in a nutshell, leave no stone unturned. So they're not trying to stop the investigation. It's basically like, was it Suzuki Roshi? Give your cow a big pasture, just give it a big space to run out, give it a bunch of Buddhist forms to play around with while it does that, and let it go to town. Um, so yeah, I think it could work that way if I'm responding to what you're asking about.
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you.
Mhm. Yes, that's something. There was a yoga class or something I was at recently where it's like they'll say like let this thing relax. We can't just do that, but some teachers will have you actually tighten up the area, like scrunch your face up so you can actually see what that feels like, and then it will relax on its own when you stop doing that. So I think there's a little quality to that and seeking or any studying anything like that. Anybody online? Jishi?
Bang. Does truth seek for us?
Hmm.
Bowing.
I want to say yes, but I can't tell you why or what that means or anything. But I want to say yes. I feel that in my heart. That's just the truth.
Jasheen. Sheen.
I'm trying to like sink into that a little bit. Conjure.
Kanjama bowing, what is the truth that the Sensei Ming is referring to?
It talks about it in a few ways. A lot of the translations will use oneness. It'll say that, but basically non-duality. I think it's at the most simple description is an Advaita teachings talking about not to. Anything more on that? Yeah, there's a few lines like if you don't do this, you'll never know oneness. That's one that stands out for me in that area. No description applies to just this one. I think that's another line in there. Shuiwu.
Joy bowing is ceasing to cherish opinions, the path to seeing the truth.
I think it is. I think that's what it's saying. That instead of the path being trying really hard to find the truth and getting really clear about what that is and then searching and finding it instead, or maybe also looking at the things that cover that up, because that's what we can find. We can find the cover ups. Yeah. Anything more on that?
Shui bowing, so it's like a teaching of looking at how our mind works and covers things up and makes things untrue, will lead us to the truth. Is that what it's saying? Bowing.
I don't know about leading us to the truth, but it is the practice for seeing that. And maybe not other than seeing that, but I'm going a little beyond where I should be speaking there. Thinking of teachings like the path is the goal, where I don't know that we need to do anything but just continue to observe our opinions. I don't know that that needs to finish up or lead us to the truth or culminate into something like the truth. So it might be, to say it this way, just enough to have that practice and have a way to work with it by looking at the opinions and beginning to see that fixation. So was I.
So does it say only cease to cherish opinions?
Yes.
Doesn't really say stop having opinions.
True. Yes, that's what it says.
So you could have a couple of opinions as long as they weren't kind of hung up on them or cherishing them.
Yeah.
So what it would look like to have an opinion you didn't cherish? Would it still be an opinion?
I think it would be. And I recall you talking about this area where there's no demand, where like if something changes, like the desire is there, but you might notice a contrast where you're not. I don't know what you would say about it, but there's not a demand there if that's not given to you or something changes.
Thank you.
You know.
You know, bowing. What if your opinion is just true?
Yeah, exactly. That's a hard area, especially when that's coming at you from someone else.
How do you work with them?
Give us an example. Give an example.
Well, some people are wrong. Just wrong.
Yeah, that's what's so hard about it, but it's so rare to have a teaching like Buddhism, it seems, because not only is it hard to see, but it's kind of like just painful to do it too. It's like you just have to like, it's like, yeah, I want to see the truth and also just have everything kind of just start sucking more. Just sign me up. At least for a bit, or it seems like the path has that for a lot of us. So where I'm going with that is that is really hard to penetrate and it's painful to get into that area, but I think that that's what we're dealing with. And these practices give us a way to deal with that, because like you're saying, like if you don't have an entry point with something like meditation, being biased here to talk about it that way, it is that it's just this solid thing that Republicans are right and Democrats are wrong and they're evil people, and or vice versa, whichever, take your pick. But is that the kind of thing you're talking about, where it's just so obvious and you don't see it as an opinion? So, and to shorten it up, I think that's what meditation is so crucial for, is that maybe not the only way, but it's such a good way of getting into that area you're asking about, which is that super tight opinion like shell that just looks like the case, the truth. Should we move?
Shui bowing. What Sokuzan pointed out, the word cherished. So what would be the value in approaching situations from an impersonal perspective? So
Interesting. Can you say where you're getting impersonal from with that?
if you don't cherish something, then maybe you're not taking things personally.
And then the question was,
What would be the value in looking at situations impersonally without a self that cherishes?
you got me. Um, hmm. That's a toughie. I don't know. I'll try. What's the value?
Shwebo bowing. I feel like I was reading about this and I am this morning, and he was saying something about, and of course I can't remember, so I was asking you. Like we can only see things truly if it's impersonal, or
I think that, thank you. That might be an entry area for us to see the dependent origination, where when we look at our opinions, maybe not ceasing cherishing, but to start looking at them, we can see that they're dependently originated, that we're not someone coming up with that. They're coming out of causes and conditions from our upbringing, from where we lived, all of those things, and countless other things. So the value of looking at that is to start to see that no one's to blame for how they're acting. And the teachings would say that there's no separate beings, and on in that area. So sorry, it took me a minute to get into what you're asking about, but is that where you're looking?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for sticking with me. Okay, I think we can close. Oh, SokukoJi.
Is there something there in not particularly grasping an opinion, or not rejecting an opinion, or not having any agenda about anything? Would it be possible to enjoy that?
I think so.
Really? Wouldn't that be suffering?
I think it would be. I think it would be. I just think of that teaching, that
Which teaching is that?
one where you shared that a Lama said, what was the question? Like, what is oh God, what was it? What is bliss? And he like laughs and says, you might call it suffering. But like the area Myoka is asking about, and obviously this doesn't scale well when we're having a lot of difficulty. Um, but it does seem, at least conceptually, that it would be enjoyable to not have to be looking for something else all the time if we were just receiving whatever was in front of us. If nothing else, it seems a lot more simple.
Good one.
Thank you, everybody.